Welcome to Construction Genius. My name is Eric Anderton, and our guest today is Bisrat Degefa. He is the CEO and co-founder of TruBuild, and he is also a construction nomad. Let me tell you what I mean by that. He's worked all over the world in different cultures on mega projects. And today we're going to have a deep discussion about what it's like to work in different cultures, the similarities and differences between them and how they handle conflict, how they build large projects, and the learning lessons that Bisrat has taken from that, which have led him to launch TruBuild. TruBuild is revolutionizing how construction professionals handle contracts by offering a cloud-based solution that leverages large language models to identify risk, ensure compliance, and flag issues, saving you time, money, and avoiding costly mistakes. And one of the most interesting aspects of our conversation is we talk about rework, but rework in a new way. Often we think about rework in terms of work that's already in place that needs to be redone for whatever reason. But rework can also occur in the planning phase. And when it does occur, it can be a tremendously hidden cost that has a negative impact on a project. And so we really discuss how to address that upfront so that not only is the construction project, the building phase itself efficient, but the planning phase is efficient as well. So you're going to enjoy the conversation here with Bisrat. Feel free to share it with other people. And thank you for listening to Construction Genius. This is Eric Anderton, and you're listening to Construction Genius, a leadership masterclass. Thomas Edison said that genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. If you're a construction leader, you know all about the perspiration, and this show is all about the 1% inspiration that you can add to your hard work to help you to improve your leadership. Bisrat, welcome to Construction Genius.
Good to be here, Eric.
You're a bit of a construction nomad. That's how I think of you when I look at your resume, your CV. Tell the audience a little bit about yourself, how you got into construction and your journey through the industry.
So I was always passionate in how things come together and how generally buildings start from a drawing an idea through to something that people can walk by, work in and live in. So I was always fascinated in construction. So yeah, that seemed like the natural route I was going to take when it came to picking a career choice. So yes, I started off my career in the UK, working on rail projects in the UK, predominantly in the they're called cross rail projects in the UK. And after a couple of years in the UK, I really wanted to see what international projects or what bigger projects were like around the world. And Qatar was gearing up on their World Cup preparations, doing lots of big construction projects in preparation for that. So I decided to move to Qatar back in 2014, to work on the Doha Metro Gold Line project, which is like $100 billion metro program, which is amazing for anyone that's worked in the Middle East. It's this kind of sink or swim type of environment. The projects move very, very quickly. The construction is super fast compared to other parts of the world, and expectations are quite high in terms of quality of finish and overall design of construction. So I was based in Qatar for a couple of years, and then we had an opportunity where the company I was working for, they acquired an engineering consultancy in Kenya, and I moved over to Kenya back in 2016 to lead the integration of this new company into our parent company. So that really required basically changing, updating the way they were working in terms of delivering construction projects to align the standards, methods, and procedures in line with what we did at the parent company. And I grew to love my time in Kenya. So I decided to stay on post integration to lead the digital engineering for the business, which is a fantastic experience. Something that I feel Kenya really benefits from is more of a white canvas, like a blank canvas when it comes to innovation, in terms of we were able to do lots of leapfrog technologies in Kenya, which basically means we didn't have to go through the natural evolution of technological advancements. We were able to implement what the latest and best, greatest technology was at that point in time, and really skipping kind of the natural.
Yeah.
And to go through.
Let me ask you a question about that. I'm interested. One of the things I hear again and again is, people really struggle to adopt new technology in construction here in the United States, particularly. And you talked about those skipping the steps of the natural evolution. How would you compare cultures like the Middle East, Africa, to Europe and the United States in terms of the willingness to adopt new technologies? What have you noticed?
Sure. So I'd say in the UK or even the States, there's lots of governance, there's lots of standards, there's lots of things have to be done in a specific way, in a specific manner, and follow a specific process. So that in some ways hinders innovation in some areas because it has to deal with a number of different requirements and governance. Whereas, say in Kenya, because I mentioned a bit more of a blank canvas, there wasn't as much robust regulation, shall we say, to doing certain things. So people can be a bit more innovative and can be a bit more riskier. And an example of this from an internal perspective was we'd gone from producing design and 2D drawings to doing virtual reality design reviews. Whereas in other parts of the business, we'd had to go through 2D designs, then do 3D modeling, and after 3D modeling, then start to do more collaborative design reviews and then virtual design. So there was like 2 steps that we were able to skip in the Kenya business compared to other parts of our business that was with. So yeah, I think mindset is a bit easier too. And also the other thing I did notice is there is the hunger to learn more and to really try new things there. But because in Kenya or that part of the world, they assume what they think because the technology say comes from America or the UK, this is what everyone's doing there. So they see it as they need to be doing it because that's what America or UK is doing. When in fact in reality it's only pockets of people that are doing those things in the UK and America, not as industry wide kind of adoption. So yeah, a really, really good mindset as a launch for innovation.
Okay, so when you came to Qatar and you talked about the sink or swim kind of mindset. How much did that kind of shock you? Was that something, because I would think coming from the West, Westerners typically, and I'm sure most people from most cultures think this, Westerners think, we know what's up, we know how to do things, we know the right way. And then you come to Qatar and they're doing things maybe a little bit differently, less regulations, less sort of boundaries. And it's like this shock to you. Was it a massive shock or did you handle that pretty well?
I'd say the first few months, just to get the grips of the pace and the speed at which the project works, that was initially a shock for sure. And I don't think it is for everyone because there isn't any time to rest. It's just full on delivery. But I agree to love it. I think it's like Marmite. You either love or hate it. And I found out I loved it.
Marmite, hold on a second. For our American listeners, that they just missed that one. What is Marmite?
Marmite's the sauce or paste that we have in the UK, and some people like it on their bread, on their toast. Some people hate it, but it's
okay. So I'm going to take a guess here. Okay, so don't say anything. Now you're from Ethiopia. I'm going to guess that you like Marmite.
I do love Marmite.
Yes. Yes. I just said that because I would figure that you have a slightly more exotic taste than your typical person, and so Marmite, which for anyone listening in America who's their eyes are glazing over. Like Bisrat said, either you love it or you hate it. And I like the fact that you loved it. That was good. So you not only worked in the Middle East and Africa, but you've also worked in South America and North America as well, right?
Sure, yeah. So after my time in Kenya, I relocated to India to lead the digital transformation of our organization. So we invested quite heavily in the offshore engineering approach where we want to standardize the ways in which certain parts of the engineering project be delivered. And by standardizing it, we can make it more efficient and reduce waste and rework. So I led the initiative to digitize elements of engineering delivery. And to do that, I relocated to India. It's a fantastic experience. Again, very similar mindset to Kenya in terms of any one person could have a background in architecture, but then upskilled and became an engineer, then upskilled. Now they're a software developer. There's constant upskilling and constant work. But after India, I relocated to the North America. So I worked in Washington on the Purple Line Metro project, which was quite a large construction project at that time. Really, really impressive design work that we were doing back then. Good time in the States. And then I relocated after that to Ottawa to work on the Trillium light rail project that was being done at that time. Again, it's quite large, multi-billion-dollar projects. I really liked the experience of having worked in North America and seeing how it compares to Europe and the Middle East.
What's the big difference? Like when you're in North America, what's the biggest difference?
I'd say the biggest difference was there's people coming around on our one project. There was people from say Florida or just these different states, and I know America's a very big country. It's a very big country with lots of different people. So
speak in generalities. It's perfectly fine. This is great.
So it would be, I'd say the experience, so many people have come from a background of working very, very smaller projects. And now all of a sudden they're working on a huge construction, multi-billion-dollar project. So in some cases, certain processes weren't scalable or certain experiences were not there in some areas, but because of the smaller size projects that were there was a very good hunger for innovation, which is nice working in the North America, and access to technologies, which wasn't sometimes always there. So even in Europe, some projects, but no, it was a good comparison. A bit more risk adverse, I'd say. It was a bit more risk adverse in North.
Yeah.
Again, but very process driven, very governance, very regulated, very which forces makes sure I's have got to be dotted, T's have got to be crossed. Yeah, again, risk adverse, but also quite innovative in a way. And then after North America, I think I went back to the UK for a short while, and I then moved to South America, Peru, with a different company. I was quite interested in working in South America because it was the only continent other than Australia or Antarctica that I hadn't worked in. So I wanted to tick off South America from my list of places that I wanted to work, and that was a very, very interesting experience. Speak Spanish now, which is a nice.
So how many languages do you speak?
Speak 4 languages there, or 3.5. And so it would be Ethiopian dialect, which is Amharic, English, Spanish, and I'm taking classes now for Arabic as well, just to it's money at home now. So it's important to learn the language.
Wow.
So I'll say this is the experience. The Peru project, this was in response to the El Nino floods. So Peru had quite a lot of damage in the northern part in Peru due to the El Nino. So there was a big government-to-government project with the UK government and Peruvian government to rebuild large parts of infrastructure, hospitals, schools, really positive impact type of work. So I spent just under 3 years in South America and relocated to the Middle East. And I kind of ended up where I started, basically.
Yeah, it's interesting. So in all of that journeying, did you have like a specific goal in mind? I'm building up a specific skill set, or was it just as opportunities came up, you just took those opportunities?
I'd say both definitely. Because of the nature of construction projects in any one country, once the project finishes, you're given an option of, do you stay and go work on another project in that country, or do you finish that project and go work on another project in a different country? So because of the nature of construction, I was always given that option after 2 years once the project finishes. Do I want to stay in the country or go somewhere else? And I always chose to, let's try another country. And so opportunities was there. And from a career perspective, I'd say I was always on the same type of career path in terms of digitization, efficiency, large scale projects. So I was always quite keen to see how people do projects in other parts of the world. So I was, both sides.
So then let's start talking about large scale projects. First, what was it that attracted you in the first place to building large scale projects?
The sheer size, scale. I get quite bored of small projects. I know some people love smaller projects. Some people hate bigger projects. Yep. I love bigger projects. Yeah. There's so many more parts of the puzzle, so many more mechanics to it. There's just so many more moving parts, which I love to be in a position that I can just see how everything kind of comes together and connects together. So I have a passion for it.
What do you think is the main difference between a person, just in the way that they think? We're not saying one is good or one is bad, but what's the main difference in let's say a project manager who works on small projects versus large projects in terms of how they think and how they approach the work?
Sure, good question. I'd say a large project manager generally would have a bit more, that there's just so many moving parts, so many more stakeholders, so many more components to it, where they're a lot more process driven because of all those moving parts. So it requires there to be process and governance in delivering larger projects as compared to smaller ones. You can somewhat manage it as and when an issue occurs, or you can somewhat manage it. You don't need to plan for every occurrence, what I'm trying to say, in the smaller projects, because there is limited amount of scenarios that could go wrong, whereas bigger ones, more process-driven project.
Then let me ask you about that as it relates to culture, because some people may say that some cultures are more process-driven and more governance-driven than others. You talked about the UK, for instance, having a lot more regulation. The United States has a lot of regulation. Western Europe typically, is a highly regulated society, whereas some of the other places where you worked, perhaps South America or Africa or even the Middle East is not as process and governance based culturally. Am I correct there? Am I kind of off base?
That's say on that's it.
So then, as it relates to a large project, as it's being run in different cultures, are folks being imported in who are already process oriented, or is there sort of a real uphill battle to get the locals, so to speak, into that process mindset for these large projects?
So in the Middle East, typically for these large scale projects, especially during the time when I was there, is lots of internationals that have coming in. So it could be from Australia, from South Africa, from Europe, America, etc. So there is a lot of international expertise that's brought in that has experience in these type of projects in one area. There is now a lot more local capacity. There is now a lot more local capacity in the local workforce for these type of projects, because that experience and that knowledge is being kind of shared and accumulated over time. So I'd say now there's less of an international. Now there's a lot more local people in the workforce delivering these projects than there was 10 years ago. So sure.
How is the in these large projects where you have a lot of different people from a lot of different backgrounds, how is the sort of the racial, ethnic, cultural differences handled in these large scale projects? How does that work?
So somehow it just works in terms of, even though everyone's coming in from a different, say, country or different race or etc., they all have a similar type of mindset in terms of they've all left their homes and their families and what they're used to come to a new place. So they have that mindset with them, which makes it a bit more explorative, a bit more out there and open and open. The mindset's similar, but the background might be different.
Interesting. So then, as you're working on these large scale projects, what are some of the consistent issues that you came across that began getting you thinking about moving to where you are now, doing TruBuild and helping people with a software solution?
So I'd say constant issues is rework.
Yeah.
Rework, and it doesn't even necessarily need to be rework during the construction phase. It could be rework during the design phase. It could be rework in the phase. And rework for a number of different reasons. It could be just because someone didn't speak to one another and they went off and they did the work to the best of their knowledge, only to realize things have changed, and then the design has got to be redone again, or the report has got to be done again, etc. So that's a common issue when you work on these larger projects, simply because of how many people there are, and we can't expect everyone to be on the same page at exactly the same point. We do put in place different mechanisms to mitigate against that in terms of meetings and notice boards and different technologies and processes, of course. But the bigger the team, the more likely there will be miscommunication, and miscommunication leads to rework.
That's interesting. I've never, it's so obvious, but I've never really thought of rework in the design and planning phase. But it's very important, I think, to think about that, because we all understand the efficiencies associated with rework in the construction phase and how that costs us money. But people, I don't think they instinctively think, if we're dragging out this design and planning phase because we're crap communicators and we have to have meetings again and again and again, that's another form of rework.
Absolutely. And it's huge. It's sometimes when I look back at, could the work have been done quick? You just look at how much time has been wasted due to inefficiencies, due to this and there. It's those things that could actually cause things to be delayed, and things can be done better, quicker, but we just need better technology and progress. We can't. I think expecting everyone to be on the same page at all times through communicating is an unrealistic expectation, and however much we try our best. So there needs to be different things or different methods and tools that we use to try to improve and enhance that problem. It is a problem, but we need to find ways to fix that problem. And sometimes having a meeting isn't always the best case. It's not the only way to fix it.
Okay, so let's talk about that, because that's what often, again, the default is, okay, we have an issue, let's have a meeting. And we are talking about communication. So the first thing that pops into my head is, well, let's talk then if it's communication. But what are some of those alternatives that you began to have insight into that's helped you to come up with some of the ideas that you're working on at the moment?
Sure. So back in when BIM and 3D modeling was really, really up on the up, about 10 years ago. So dynamic modeling, in terms of 3D modeling, federating designs together so that we could be able to see everyone's design in the same area. That was a way of letting data and letting technology enable coordination and reduce rework, because we're not all working in our own silos. So that type of approach, but cascading it across the entire project team. So when we look at the entire project team, there's project managers, designers, engineers, contractors. So anything that facilitates federating what people's actual work is and connecting it, that's what the object. That's what the fail state should. In the case that someone hasn't communicated verbally, we can see what the work they're doing, does it connect to each other's work, to the key.
Interesting. So tell me more about that then, this idea of federation. Tell us precisely what you mean by that idea of federation.
Sure. So federation from a design perspective, it would mean, if we just picked 3 disciplines, architecture, structural, and mechanical. A federation from that perspective would be, let's physically federate their designs together. So let's bring together the architectural, the structural, and let's overlay them on one another to see if it fits. So that's federation from a design perspective. Federation from, say, a project management perspective could be, let's connect the project management consists of risk, scheduling, contract, all of these different kind of subspace. So let's connect and kind of overlay each other's disciplines' work to one another and see if it connects up physically. So that would kind of, and there are different systems. I think what we're seeing now, for example, there are lots of different construction management platforms. Procore is a good example where they have different modules for, say, risk and schedule and project management. And that's to achieve federation from document-based workflows, situation.
Yep.
We could just connect it. So we need to connect each other's work in the nicest, easiest way possible. And then we can identify if people haven't spoken or not.
Interesting. Okay. So communication is one of the big issues. What would you say is another big issue that you saw in these mega projects?
I'll pick the Middle East, for example. So somewhat, it's a double-sided sword, but unachievable, like programs, schedules, or timelines where you might say in the States, where it's to do a design or a construction might say 1 year. If you get the right experts to plan it out, they would say do 1 year, but then it could be saying, no, we want it done in 3 months. Now, no problem. It can be done in 3 months, but something has to give. It could be the QA check that had to be given. It could be the reviews had to be reduced from 3 reviews to 1 review. So it's kind of fixed, rigid programs that can tell. Some processes are start, finish, and that requires time. Some processes or some things to be done properly. So if we can bring so programs and schedules, I'd say that's one common thing I'd say with some larger projects, especially in the Middle East, where the time frames are very, very short to do construction projects. So something has to give.
Europe, Africa, the United States, Australia, all over the world, people are reading and loving my book, Construction Genius. If you read it, you will love it also. How do I know that? Well, the 5-star reviews on Amazon tell me so. Surf out to Amazon right now and buy yourself a copy of the book. You will not regret it. I promise you that it will give you effective, simple, hands-on, practical, no BS, sales, marketing, leadership, and strategy advice specifically aimed at helping you become a better leader in construction. Buy 10 copies or more for you and the leaders in your company. I will come into your business via Zoom and do a 1-hour question and answer session and leadership training session. I would normally charge $3,500 for an hour of my time, but for you, if you buy 10 copies, you get it for under $200. That's called a killer deal. So buy the book, you'll love it. And now let's get back to the interview with Bisrat. In your experience then, was it the general contractor, the prime contractor who was servicing these things, or were the subs coming to the general and saying, hey, this is not going to work? Or how did that all get worked out, particularly in these larger projects?
It would normally be top down. So it would normally be the project owner that would say, we have a target of 2020X. By that time, we need to do all of these projects. So they would set the overall target and the objective, and everyone would kind of need to work to that. And people just agree or commit to those deadlines. But then this then leads to disputes and arbitration and things further downstream, because people sometimes know it's not achievable, but they just, I don't know, it's a very hard thing to communicate, but it's driven by top down, require a top down objective, saying we want the schedules to be right this time. People would then just accept it and start doing the best they can do to go through those deadlines. But because not everything is able to be done, this then will lead to disputes and arbitration downstream.
Right. Which culture that you've been in are the best at handling conflict?
I'll say the UK.
Really?
The UK. Yeah, I'd say the UK.
Okay, tell me why the UK is the best at handling conflict.
So I'd pick one example, even from a contract perspective. So the UK's released the UK has a construction contract with the NEC. And I think the NEC construction contract, or standard form contract, is the only standard form contract out there. And I might be wrong in this, but that has collaboration clauses. So it forces people to collaborate to avoid conflict in the first place. Whereas many other contracts would say, if this happened, if that person's wrong, or it's quite, whereas the NEC construction contract has lots of early warning indicators or early warning notices to avoid conflict. So if you are aware of something is going to happen, you should notify that person. And if you don't notify them and it happens, you're actually the one in the wrong, not that person. And this is been developed over years and years and years of best practice and seeing how construction projects can go wrong and go right. So I'd say the UK is quite mature at preventing conflicts. And then when it does come to conflicts in itself, I don't want to put down anyone, but I think conversations are a bit more less emotional, less heated, more logical in terms of this happened by this day and then this and this and this. Okay, let's agree on this rather than emotional, shall we say. So it's people reason a bit better. And again, I'm not saying it's well.
No, don't worry. Tell me then, which culture is the worst at overcoming conflict?
I'd say the Middle East. They're very passionate people. They're very passionate, and the passion is quite emotion. It's related to emotion. Yep. I'd say the Middle East and generally the kind of Middle East type contractors and Middle East type projects. They're a bit more fiery. Should we say a bit more fiery in nature.
So let me ask you this: how do you build trust with people in different cultures? So let's say you're in the Middle East, right? And you're on one of these mega projects, you're working with a bunch of different people. How do you build trust on those projects?
I'm a big fan of kind of shared problem, shared rewards kind of approach where it's better that we kind of both win rather than both lose kind of approach. So so what we generally speaking, what the projects that are a bit more transparent as much as possible, because there's always a certain level of transparency you can have between organizations, because each organization does have their own goals and KPIs and management, shall we say. But open communication, transparency, and shared goals and objectives, shared pains and shared rewards is one way that seems to work, but not all. Yeah, it's one approach.
How do you resist the urge when you've made a mistake to cover it up and or try to fix it? In your attempt to fix it, you make it worse.
I mean, if a mistake has been made, obviously try to rectify the mistake as quick as possible before it impacts others. But I think as soon as you realize, okay, this is now going to impact others, then to flag it and raise it, and let people know that this is coming, this issue is coming. We've done our best to fix it, but it's kind of gone outside of our control in a way. So I wouldn't try to hide it. I think it would only come to blow back in your face. So try to fix it while it's in your control. If it's not, let the stakeholders know ASAP, and then collectively approach it, which they also appreciate. And you can at least collectively try to fix the problem. Yeah.
That's interesting. I didn't want to make a note of that, right? So once it slips outside of your control and it's going to impact others, that's when you begin to notify others and don't hide it, or don't perhaps continue to try to fix it and either make it worse or, just screw it up even more.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, so now how did you begin to transition out of working directly in construction to working on TruBuild and the company that you're running now?
My role within the organizations for the past 6-7 years has been to develop and design new technologies or partner with technology providers to improve engineering and construction. So that's always been my role for the past few years within the organizations. The challenge, the challenge that I had in this role in some ways is, and it's learnings in a way, it's much harder for corporate companies, big companies to develop technology, software solutions. There's a lot of stakeholders, lots of bureaucracy, there's lots of interests from so many different people. You're not as focused because it's the company's money and everyone wants to have a part of it. So for me, I decided last year that, okay, I'm really happy with what I've done in the past and the things that we've done, but I really want to move quicker than I have been in developing solutions. And the only way for me to do that is to do my own startup, and it's to create a software company, not create a software team within an engineering construction company, which there's a big difference. The pace at which we've been able to try something, fail, and then learn and then improve within a startup environment would have been tenfold in a corporate environment.
How do you handle personally that try, fail aspect of entrepreneurship, which is absolutely essential?
I normally start so I have an idea that I think is going to work, or I want to test out, or a hypothesis, whatever. Then I normally, before I even start any software development, we just do a quick prototype, like a little design of what that could look like. And then I test that out with some people. When testing out with people, the one thing I've really had to get to grips with is the thing called the mum test. I don't know if you've come across the mum test. I'm sure you have.
No, tell me.
The mum test is a theory of something that was a really smart person that wrote about it. Essentially, it's when you ask your mum, am I fat? Your mum's never going to tell you you're fat. She can say, oh, you look at me, you look handsome. That same philosophy has to be taken to when we're asking users, in some cases, they might be my friends, what do you think about this? I don't want them to just tell me, this is good, this is amazing. I don't want them to tell me that because they like me or they're my friends. I need constructive criticism and constructive feedback. So there's a style in which the questions need to be posed. There's a style in which you need to engage with users in order to see what their actual problems are. So this really helps out with seeing if the idea that you've got is the right one, is the right solution. If it's not, then I need to ask another type of questions in a different way, and then keep going through that. So just to make sure I'm not in that bubble, my own bubble in a way.
That's really great. So give me an example of some of the types of questions that you ask that help you to get real feedback, as opposed to someone telling you that you're skinny when you're actually fat.
So sure. So the type of question could be in a meeting, for example, I would start with demoing my platform in the beginning. I would start off with how do you currently do this? We could say tender evaluation could be the thing. How do you currently do your tender evaluation? What pain points do you have with tender evaluation? What tools and processes? So really trying to get them to speak more than me speak.
Yes.
And then through that, I can then build a bit better picture of how I need to go back to them. So even if I don't demo the platform in the first session, that I can at least come back with a more solid presentation that I know really does align with their existing pains and their problems. So let the user speak, not you.
Yeah.
And I'd love to, so it's very hard for me.
Yep. That's where the quality of the questions come in, so that you get some interesting answers, eh?
I have to say you're very good at this as well, Eric, because you've got me speaking very much like this. I didn't use you say a few words and then I end up hitting 1,000 words. So I think you're very good at the mum test without even knowing it, actually.
Yeah. It's interesting because I like to talk a lot as well, but I find other people way more interesting. So if I can ask a good question, then some great stuff comes out. So you launched TruBuild. Tell us specifically what TruBuild does and who it's for.
Sure. So TruBuild focuses on making the project planning phase more efficient, quicker, and more accurate. So we want to make sure before we go to construction, the project scope and the roles, responsibilities, and what needs to be done is as clean and clear as possible before construction starts. Why are we doing that? Is because I've seen and I've been on as many projects where we're measuring against the baseline that's wrong. We're measuring against a program that was wrong in the first place. So when it came to TruBuild, initially I was thinking about, should we really focus on the execution of it? But I said, no, focusing on execution is actually being correct for us, because the root cause of these construction delays and these problems is in the planning phase. So we really want to get to the root cause of construction problems, and that starts with planning. So we have with the identifying gaps between what the design has done and what the project management people are doing to make sure there's no misalignment. We help teams evaluate their tender proposals that contractors is given to make sure that the contractor has fully understood the scope of what the project needs to be done. And then we also help the teams with the actual contract awarding to make sure, again, in the contract, it's in line with what the scope was and the project. So just ensuring alignment in the planning phase across the teams. And we work quite closely with project owners. and the consultants that project owners have to help them prepare their work. That's the main people that work.
Identified three things there. So you help folks to identify gaps in the information they have, to evaluate the proposal so they can understand the scope, and then to compare what's awarded to what they bid. Is that correct?
To make sure what's being awarded or what's being contracted is clear.
Yes.
It's clear.
Okay.
Yeah. Clear.
Okay.
Because there's so many ambiguities. There's so many question marks that we have. And if a question mark goes from the planning phase into the execution phase, that then leads into a dispute, a delay, or someone saying something. So we can reduce ambiguities and question marks that exist that create in the planning phase, then the project's got the best chance of being successful.
So then people are working with you prior to being awarded a project, then also after being awarded a project in the planning phase itself?
At the moment, we're primarily focusing on the planning phase up until contract award. And then that's our main niche.
Okay, excellent. So then who would be your ideal client? Who's the person who needs to go to TruBuild.io and begin to a conversation, maybe check out a demo?
Sure. So I'll say project owners or asset owners. So any kind of project owners that own multiple assets or that have quite large capital projects, frequent capital projects that they do on annual projects. So if they're constantly developing new buildings, they're constantly building new oil refineries or so project owners that have regular capital projects, they would really benefit from using TruBuild. And developers, so that's what you'd call them in the state, developers or real estate developers.
Yeah. Excellent. So primarily then you're working with the owners as opposed to the contractors. Am I hearing that right?
Correct.
Interesting. What is it about your experience as a contractor or, in working in construction that really helps you to address the pain points that owners have?
Sure. So my background previously was in the engineering phase and as a consultant to the owners, so helping them.
Yeah.
I've seen things go wrong and I've seen things go right on many occasions and in many different countries with many different consultants and contractors. So I've got a good understanding of where the root causes are in some of the issues that we find in construction and how to mitigate against them. And a big reason of that is we're not all on the same page. There's too much information. We need technology to help us really. Can't say any more simply than that.
Yeah. So let me ask you this then. Let's say I'm a contractor. Give me 3 red flags that I need to look for when I'm working with an owner that tells me I need to walk away from this guy, even if it's a project that I should I want to do. This is not an owner that I should be working with.
I'd say more specifically from an engineering consultant perspective rather than a contractor. So I mentioned the background was in more consultancy.
Please, yeah.
I'd say somewhat unreasonable expectations. So there are some owners which are quite mature and they have internal engineering teams that are able to that have an understanding of how construction is delivered so that you can have a logical conversation with them and have a reason-based conversation with them. Though I think the maturity of the owner and delivering construction projects, that's quite a level of maturity and a level of risk I'd associate with their maturity. Other kind of red flags, I'd say, when it comes to working with owners, it's a bit more prevalent in some other parts of the world than some parts, but do they pay? There are so many projects that have gone through and the owners haven't paid for services or have created issues or reasons why not to pay. So I see their track record of delivery of working with other international companies or large companies and have they actually paid for the services. And in fact, this issue, in fact, there was a very large contractor or Carillion, the UK-based contractor that went actually bankrupt due to a lack of payment from quite large construction projects out here in the Middle East, and it impacted their overall global P&L statement. So so payment, maturity. The third thing I'll say that helps between you identify a red flag for an opener. I'll say them two, for example, with their maturity in delivering engineering projects. Do they have internal capacity and payment? I'll say that those two are quite key ones.
Excellent. So they know what they're doing, in other words, and they're able to pay you for the work that you do.
Basically.
That's pretty good. Yeah, I like that. Okay, cool. So tell us how we can get in touch with you then.
Sure. So you can reach us. You can reach me personally on LinkedIn. I'm quite active on LinkedIn. So it's Bisrat Degefa on LinkedIn. Also, you can find us on TruBuild.io if you want to reach out to us and schedule a demo. But I'll definitely say LinkedIn is the quickest and easiest way to get in contact with me.
Excellent. Well, Bisrat, I really appreciate it. I have one last question. So you're in the Middle East. Tell us again where you're based now.
I'm based in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia.
Riyadh, okay. In Saudi, okay. When you're thinking of the Middle East in general, what's the one place that someone from the West should visit?
I'd say Riyadh right now is a place to be.
Yeah.
It's a place to be, yeah. So definitely.
So if I was flying into Riyadh, right? Let's say I flew into Riyadh, I was going to do, how many days should I do in Riyadh?
I'd say a good 5 days. Good 5 days, you can be able to get a good feel for it. And I say Riyadh, it's just, there is so many events, conferences, initiatives kicking off just in this one city. And it's attracting people from all around the world, whether it's the Future Investment Initiative, FII. We had the World Economic Forum Initiative. I'm happy to be here a few months back. It's attracting so many key big organizations and events to this one place. NEOM, big project happening in the West. 5 days. Hit me up, and then I'll sort your itinerary out.
There you go. Okay, great. Well, Bisrat, I really appreciate your time, and thanks for joining us on Construction Genius.
My pleasure. Good to speak to you, Eric.
Thank you for listening to Construction Genius. Please feel free to share this episode with other people. Give the show a rating and review wherever you get your podcasts, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Thank you for listening to this episode of Construction Genius. Hope you found that 1% of inspiration to help you in the next few days. If you like the show, please give us a 5-star review on iTunes, share it with other construction leaders who you think would benefit, and always remember that the show is brought to you by Kick-Ass Meetings. I've been working with construction leaders since 2004, teaching them how to run extremely effective problem-solving meetings that gets their people collaborating, taps into their creativity, and to get yourself a free copy of the Kick-Ass Meeting Report, go to www.ericanderton.com/kickassmeetings. Grab yourself that free report, read it, use it in your business. You'll find it extremely useful. And thanks again for listening.